So we'll do Moon Knight episode 3. So we got the friendly type. This episode of Moon Knight, we do focus on a little bit more on the Layla character. Layla, who is the wife of the Mark Spector identity of the Oscar Isaac character. Layla, who's the actress that plays Layla? By the
Oh,
way,
the actress is May Kalamawi. I'm saying that phonetically. She's an Egyptian Palestinian, and I think this might be one of her first big Western roles.
okay, nice.
Oh, she was in that Hulu show Raimi. For anybody who's seen that before.
Yeah, I've seen advertisements for that on Hulu popping up, everything like that. So here you focus a little bit on the Layla character and her decision to kind of to re-enter Egypt. She's almost been away from Egypt a decade, and she kind of makes a fake passport in order to get back there. You also kind of see a little bit more with the kind of Mark Spector identity and Steven identity kind of working together. Their strengths and weaknesses kind of coming together. You see Steven is the brains and Mark is more the muscle here. And there's a lot of puzzle work that goes into a lot of these things because Steven is such a history nerd. Archaeology nerd that he knows a lot about this stuff of ancient ruins and Egypt and all these kind of things like that, gods, so he's kind of comes in clutch in a very big moment in this episode, in episode 3, that I thought was very nice to see them kind of trade off there, even in a humorous moment where Steven's like, hey, no more violence, okay guys, let's cut it out, and then after the moment
it's like they get stabbed. It's like, okay, Mark, you got it.
Yeah, tag out. I come back in. Yeah.
Which is kind of amazing because Oscar Isaac is one of the great working actors, and just the noticeable shift in demeanor and personality when he does switch between alters of Steven and Mark. It's amazing to watch.
Yeah. Very kind of impressive. Also, there's an actor in this who recently passed away in this episode.
Gaspard Uye. Gaspard Uye, I think is how you pronounce it. He died young too, at 37. That's tragic.
He was going to be the Midnight Sun. That's the character that in the comics that he was going to be.
The character is Anton Mogart, who played the Midnight Sun. Who, it's a tragic thing. He died in a skiing accident last year, and this is his last role.
Okay, yeah,
that's why he kind of went out into the mist, so to speak. They'll probably do something else.
Yeah, maybe swap him out with another actor. Like he comes
They'll
back.
Probably swap him out with another actor. Honestly,
come back as a different person. Yeah. So I mean, kind of sad news there. What happened to him? Like you said, young, 37, skiing accident. Yeah. Pretty tragic stuff there. With this episode, like I said, I did like a lot of that with the two identities kind of trading off, and I do really like the action stuff they do with their switching back and forth. And you
it's very much what we were talking about last week. That go up against other people, and it's actually fairly well choreographed action. I do think it is kind of a little shaky in some bits, but I think for the most part it works.
Thus, what were kind of your feelings on this episode?
I think I'm really starting to like the gimmick of the less is more approach that it's been kind of going with. Every time an action scene happens and then we just kind of cut back to the end result, it kind of shows me how spoiled I've been, because when we actually do cut to an action scene, I'm kind of missing how, just to see how this would have ended more than just seeing it all the way through. I do like that there's the hint of is there another personality? Is what's going on here? And you're like, okay, good. They already hinted towards that.
And you said the other personality, his name is Jake, right?
Jake
Yeah,
Lockley.
in the comic, I think the body of Mark Spector, it has three different alters: Stephen
Up to
Grant,
5,
Mark
really.
Spector, and it's like, but those are the main three alters that we mostly see. It's
Yeah,
Stephen Grant, Mark
because Mr.
Spector,
Knight.
and Jake Lockley.
Yeah, because Mr. Knight was was a fourth identity, but
Hmm.
they've combined him this show into him and Steve, which is not the
Hmm.
worst idea. Honestly, it saves on characters. The fifth personality is just the Moon Knight itself. The Moon Knight itself is his own personality and its own thing, but
Yeah,
that's
Khonshu,
more harder to explain.
or
Kanchu, yeah.
okay.
Kanchu got a lot of nice backstory in this. That was
Yeah,
kind of nice.
Which is something I think was needed because we actually get to explore the backstory of Khonshu in this amazingly tense scene where we get this of course we get the answer of why doesn't he just go to the other gods? Because one, they're paid off by Harrow, and two, it is kind of this amazing showcase of acting because you have Ethan Hawke as a Arthur Harrow deliberately using a lot of outdated terminology when talking about DID,
Hmm.
and speaking about that and forcing Mark Spector to listen and baiting him into outburst and baiting him into using violence in order to get him thrown out.
well, more. I mean, baiting Khonshu more. I mean, not really Mark though.
Baiting Conchu, baiting Mark, or baiting Steven, any of them.
Yeah.
There's there's also a way of showing that the way Khonshu deals with his avatars, he's a lot more like. There's also a nice effect that Khonshu is his own worst enemy. He often creates the
Hmm.
things that unfortunately will later come back to bite him in the ass.
Hmm.
The way he handles Mark, you can notice there's a notable difference where either the avatars just submit to the gods and they just
Hmm.
kindly slip in, or there's like a mutual understanding between the two and they just kind of shift in. With Conchu, it's a full on, I'm assuming, direct control. And it's like he's vomiting his voice from his throat.
Hmm.
He doesn't really get much choice in that.
Yeah. And that was a great sequence. I mean, when he goes to meet the other gods, and you see kind of have all these other gods have these different avatars and a relationship with their avatars. He meets one of these people, one of these avatars, who even had a friendly relationship with Khonshu in the past. One of the goddesses of music and love, I think she said.
Yeah.
So had a past
Before he got
relationship.
thrown out 2,000 years ago.
There's a character named Yatzil who's played by Diana, and she's wonderful in this.
Yeah.
And,
And that.
and
Oh,
oh yeah, no, I was done talking. Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, that was a great sequence, and that whole trial that they kind of set up between him and Arthur Harrow, and Khonshu slash Mark slash Steven, there. It was kind of like, I mean, as bad as the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial. I mean, he was just, it was really terrible there. I mean, he was not good at all in his defense. I mean, Arthur Harrow was just running circles around this guy.
To be fair, Arthur Harrow also, if you noticed, he manipulated the way he used certain words in which he's not technically lying, but he's leaving out very clear information. He's not answering the god's questions. He's always moving the question or moving the answer because to lie would be a sin. It would be committing an evil act. And he's like, "Oh, my intent is still bad, but I'm just using you while using my limits. I'm curving around it." It does make the gods look like they're stupid, though.
Hmm.
Like anyone could clearly kind of say, "Well, why don't they know?" The only explanation I can kind of think of is, well, they only live in their avatar bodies, and that's all they can see is that perception. They don't get to see outside of it, which is how Khonshu's kind of able to has the advantage. He never abandoned humanity; he still remained. Well, the gods
And
just
there's
kind of
also a
peaced
scene
out.
where Harrow is talking to one of the gods after the trial, so it's clear that it was kind of fixed from the start.
Yeah, or they have a relationship. Everyone has a relationship between each other. What's oh, um, we're on mutual ground. This is what it is. Respecting you as a previous avatar, whatever. They're being too considerate or too this, and they're just letting him run circles around him because he knows the game.
Yeah. Yeah, and you see kind of in this episode more of Mark than we've ever seen before in the previous two episodes. You said you really see the difference between the two characters there of Steven and Mark. And you see kind of you see more kind of how he talks to Khonshu and then kind of their relationship. And then Khonshu, the threat of him possibly saying, I'll take over Layla. So has that ever happened in the comics? Like him, has he ever taken over Layla or anything like that? And used her as an avatar at any point?
Yeah, actually, the more I keep watching it, the more I feel that's kind of an empty threat, and Mark doesn't realize it. Like the longer you start to the more you start to understand, it's like, no, he can't just possess Layla the way Mark is. And to be fair, Mark might actually not remember truly how he got in the situation with Khonshu. But he did die, and he did get brought back. It's very clear on that, but it's also a mix of not only physically was he dead, he was always he always had DI. DID, I'm sorry, disassociated disorder.
DID.
DID, that's right. He's always had that from the beginning. He even makes mention like, oh, Steve's always been there. Always aspects of there, but I've always been in control. And she's like, well, what happened lately? He goes, I don't know. Although if you notice, every single time he kind of changes, there's either a mirror or he gets hit in the head. That's when a force change happened. That's when another character kind of showed up when he got smacked in the back of the head, and then he kind of passes out, and then he wakes up again, and like, oh, they're all dead. How did that happen? And Steve's like, I didn't do that. I didn't do that shit. It's just like, oh, someone else went in control.
Yeah, it's wonderfully played, and I really like the dynamic between Steven. It's them, because something that I was kind of concerned about going in, are they going to completely shelve Stephen Grant and just kind of have him be the moral Jiminy Cricket? And they don't do that at all. He is vital to where the episode goes towards the end of this one.
Yeah.
I think that's also that's a good aspect to it. I hope they do a lot more with it, where Mark is the more combat effective, very practical skills aspect. He has a lot of the retaining knowledge, but when it comes to Egyptian mythology, when it comes to poetry, when it comes to all these like another more tender or more knowledgeable subjects, it's like Steven got all that, his part of the brain where he's like, no, I have all that. And he can't access that. He has to rely on him to access the other part of his brain.
Yeah,
I think that's a good move to kind of sort of balance it. And but there's other parts of him like, well, like you should know some other stuff. So there's probably other personalities in there that have access that he's not quite aware of, or have yet to make themselves known, or even aware. They might not even be aware.
Yeah. Yeah, because like you say, he can access this other personality through kind of mirrors and reflections. Because there's a scene he rips off the side view mirror of the vehicle, and he just looks at it to switch back into Steven. And that was really nice. So with Concho, I want to talk about like his powers here. So were they was he shifting the universe, or was he just the sky? Or...
He was. It was. I think he was shifting the sky to what they needed to find.
It was like, yeah, Khonshu, he only has so much power. He's not a major deity. He needed an avatar in order to focalize his point. And it's not like, in the rest of the same planet Earth, in that area you're going to see, with the Avengers, the sky went crazy. No, it's just in that specific area, and that's where it is. And it's spinning the sky to resemble what it was at that time. It's like an illusion. It's the same thing he did with the eclipse. He didn't actually move the moon to eclipse, but he did it in a manner that there's no way the gods could ignore an astrological form like that. He showed an ounce of his power, a hint of his power, and he's like, but that's a big no-no.
Yeah, which is one of those things. I'm just imagining being in Cairo at that time and just looking up. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. It's like that line from Futurama. It's like, I can't see none. It's pretty though.
Can't see none. Pretty though.
Yeah. So that was really interesting to see his power and see them kind of shift things like that. That was kind of very interesting there. That I really did enjoy with Conchu there, and I like seeing Conchu. The look of him, I think is very nice to see kind of more of him, and I think the CGI to me is getting a little bit better to me as it progresses. I still don't think it's top tier as they have with these other shows, but I still think it's pretty good because like the action scene here that they had the big where he's fighting all the goons where they get captured. And he switches to the Moon Knight character. He throws his. I was listening to Mr. Sunday Moves. They called them Moonerangs. You know what I mean? I was listening to them. That's what they called it. He's got his own
Just
Moonerangs there.
random bullshit. Go.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah, random bullshit.
Kind of his kind of whole weaponry and how he can like take in the bullets and kind of reflect them back. I don't know. This is like a CW kind of thing, but it kind of I don't know. Nick probably would know, but it kind of reminded me a little bit of Ragman from when they did on Arrow a little bit, like kind of a little bit of that.
In parts, in partially, mostly because of the way the character looks, because it is kind of the suit is kind of this theme where it's a mummification.
Yeah.
But I think it looks much better here than it did on anything the CW ever did.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
By a mile.
I think also it's in. Can we also say that escalation to the superb amount of violence from the philanthropist is like ridiculous? He was just like, "Oh, we're all just gonna take it out guns." You're like, what is wrong with you guys? Like, this never need to escalate to that. And the whole conversation that Harrow showed up, like, Harrow, how did you get here? How did you even know they were gonna go?
I don't know.
Like that's where it's starting to kind of be a bit for me, where I'm like, all right, you're here in too many places, especially when you have broken glass in your shoes. I still hear that clicking. It's still there. What like? There's no way you got to these locations as quickly as they did.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, yeah, because I was going back and rewatching the episodes, and I can hear, you can hear the glass in his shoes. I was like, oh yeah, you can hear it's still rattling
Especially
around.
when he was like at the very end, when he's like stepping down, you hear that.
That crunch, yeah. Man, yeah. So what did you think of that action sequence there? Towards the end of the episode, what did you guys think about that?
I thought it was really good. I think it's well choreographed, but I don't know. There's just something. I don't know what it is. There's just like that little extra oomph that's kind of missing from the action set pieces. It's good, but it's not on the level of anything that was in like something like Shang-Chi or even something like Daredevil or the Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Okay. Dust?
Yeah, I'm with Nick on that. When I saw a boomerang go into one guy's like neck, and I was thinking like, oh man, that needs to come back. It needs to have blood on it. There needed to be more of there needs to be like a ooh moments that needs to reflect the amount of what we didn't see, because without it, it felt fairly generic and not very well choreographed, and he should have really showcased it. Even without it, Oscar Isaac showed better mercenary fighting prowess than he did in the suit, and the suit should be amplifying every aspect of him, and I just felt it was kind of lackluster a little bit. It was fine, but it could have been better. It was a little too open space. I think that was also an issue.
He needs a hallway. He needs a hallway.
Yeah, he does need a hallway. Everybody needs a hallway.
He needs his hallway.
Yeah.
If they're gonna do that, he needs needs more random BS that he needs to throw at people.
Yeah. 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 I kind of was like, it's okay. It's not the best I've seen, like you said, of these Disney Plus show scenes, like action wise. I think a lot of them have had better action set pieces, and I don't know. I was kind of, like this Moon Knight character. I was kind of like expecting a little bit more better kind of hand-to-hand combat kind of sequences, given like like this character is a little bit, like I said, it's supposed to be kind of Marvel's Batman character. And just also rewatching the Daredevil series again to get prepared for Saturday. It's like, I watched that hallway sequence again. It's like, yep, that's still good. Still goated. Still really great, yeah. But overall, so what are you guys' thoughts? Final thoughts on the episode?
I think this is probably the most rewatchable. I think it's perfectly building more towards the reveal of possibly a third altar or what eventually Ethan Hawke's endgame is gonna be. I think the action it is kind of meh, but considering the lack of it in the first 2 episodes, I thought it was kind of needed.
Okay. Dels?
I mean, I'm enjoying the episode so far. Layla's a character that I'm still kind of going, what she's really super adding to this. Where are they going with this for her character? It's not that I'm not happy to see a dynamic that he could talk with someone outside of Steven, but I'm curious to see where this goes and what they're kind of building towards, especially in their relationship or not. Because there were a couple of moments where I think it's kind of hilarious that Steven was doing his kind of stuff, and I'm like, are you falling for Steven now? Like, that's kind of hilarious that she's falling for the other aspect of his personality, and you're like, okay, man. But overall, for episode 3, it ends on a. Episode 3 should have been like how they presented it. Should have been 2-episode drop, then another 2 episodes, because this 3rd episode is a great middle mark where it's like, okay, all right, now we got to figure out how we're going to solve this problem. Now that we may not have our abilities the way we want them, we're at a disadvantage now. We're gonna have to use our mind and possibly get guns. Possibly get guns. It's Egypt. They'll get guns. They'll find it.
Does make me want to visit Egypt. This show does really make me want to travel to Egypt.
I mean,
it's kind of refreshing that we
too.
get a kind of
We get two
refreshing that
sides
we
of
get
it.
a mostly desert setting, and they don't put that fucking like piss filter that Hollywood likes to do with any kind of other country.
Yeah. I also liked about it is that they showed different aspects of Egypt, where they showed kind of like a Cairo or near the Egypt, the pyramids of Giza. It's a lot more of a marketplace, and the tourists might come there as well. But you got to watch yourself because it's going a mile a minute. It's a city, and then you go to other aspects of Egypt where it's a big time party city. It's a much more modernized version of what you would consider like a city or like a Dubai kind of aspect to it, and it's a very party night kind of city. And you're like, okay, and then you go straight into the night desert of the deserts of Egypt, and you're getting the different vistas that you should in Egypt. It's a very varied place. It's nice to see that, at least for the little bit we could.
Yeah, for me, I think this is maybe my favorite episode so far of the series. I do like the stuff they're doing with Layla. I do like you said how she is kind of geeking out a little bit over. I mean, it's two geeks kind of geeking out a little bit with her and Steven because she also has this great knowledge, a lot about kind of Egypt and archaeology and everything like that because her dad was very much into that stuff as well. So that was kind of very nice. I think some of the CGI is getting a little bit better with Khonshu with the Moon Knight suit, which I also like to see. And then Ethan Hawke still is very good as Arthur Harrow. Very, very good in that.
I think what separates this from a lot of the Disney is the level of acting here, because I think Oscar Isaac and Ethan Hawke, they're both killing it on this show.
Yeah. And I do like that it's not heavily trying to reference other MCU stuff. The other shows that had such a big connection, it's like this really feels so isolated, like how the Marvel.
By the nature of who was featured on a lot of those shows, it would be disingenuous for them not to reference the MCU as a whole. But here, this is kind of the first time that we've gotten a new character on one of these shows.
Yeah, and it feels like very contained, and like this whole other kind of mythology we're being introduced to with these gods and these Egyptian gods and everything like that. I think is also very cool. I think another kind of strong episode here. Liking it kind of better and better with each episode for me.